It was a quiet Tuesday evening, and I found myself engrossed in a gripping novel on my worn-out couch. The rain outside added a rhythmic soundtrack to my peaceful night. Little did I know, this tranquility was about to be shattered by an unknown caller. As the clock struck 10 p.m., my phone vibrated on the chipped coffee table. Glancing at the screen, I saw a number I didn't recognize. Intrigued, I hesitated for a moment before answering, expecting it to be a friend or family member with a new number. "Hello," I said, my voice tentative. There was no immediate response, just a faint static on the other end. A shiver ran down my spine, an inexplicable sense of unease settling in the pit of my stomach. "Who's there?" I asked again, a hint of anxiety in my voice. A low, distorted voice emerged from the static. "Emily," it whispered my name, sending a chill through my entire body. My heart raced, and I gripped the phone tighter. "Who is this? What do you want?" The voice on the other end didn't answer immediately. Instead, I heard disjointed snippets of conversation, as if the caller was eavesdropping on random people. The unsettling feeling intensified as the voice began reciting details about my life, my daily routine, places I frequented, even the names of my friends. Panic set in, and my mind raced with possibilities. Was this some sick prank, or was I being watched? The caller seemed to revel in the discomfort they were causing. "Stop it. Who are you?" I demanded, my voice trembling. The voice ignored my question, instead describing in eerie detail the room I was in. I frantically scanned my surroundings, realizing that someone must be watching me. Fear took hold as I rushed to lock all the doors and windows. "I know what you're doing," the voice continued, now with a sinister edge. "I know everything about you, Emily. Every move, every secret." Desperation washed over me as I considered calling the police, but the thought of involving them without concrete evidence made me hesitate. The unknown caller seemed to feed off my fear, relishing the psychological torment. As the night wore on, the calls persisted, each one more unsettling than the last. I became a prisoner in my own home, constantly looking over my shoulder. I changed my number, installed security cameras, and even sought the help of a private investigator, but the calls persisted. The unknown caller remained a haunting presence, a spectre that refused to be banished. The once peaceful nights were now filled with the chilling whispers of a voice that seemed to know everything about me. I couldn't escape the feeling that I was being watched, even in the supposed safety of my own home. Days turned into weeks, and the torment continued. My nerves were frayed, sleep was elusive. The caller seemed to know my deepest fears and anxieties, using them against me. As I grappled with the haunting calls, I discovered cryptic messages left at my doorstep. Anonymous notes that hinted at a malevolent force orchestrating this sinister game. The realization that the unknown caller was not just a faceless voice on the phone, but a shadowy figure with a malevolent agenda, plunged me further into a state of perpetual dread. In a desperate attempt to regain control, I delved into the unknown caller's cryptic messages, trying to decipher their meaning. Each revelation fueled my paranoia, leading me down a rabbit hole of conspiracy theories and dark secrets. The unsettling true story of the unknown caller became a dark chapter in my life, a constant reminder that sometimes the things we cannot see or understand can be the most disturbing of all. And as the mysterious caller's motives remained shrouded in an unsettling mystery, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was caught in a web of intrigue, a pawn in a game where the rules were unknown and the stakes were higher than I could ever have imagined. It's been about 10 years since this happened, but I still remember things pretty clearly. I should note that this is told from my perspective, and I wish I could get my mother's perspective on it as well. She just doesn't remember the events as well as I do. For context, I lived in a mid-sized city in the southern United States, where the main thing to do at the time was go to the mall. Sure, we had movie theaters and a couple of bowling alleys, but besides that, there really wasn't much to the city. My mom worked at a department store located in the mall, and having nothing better to do, I would regularly go and sit in the break room while she worked. It gave me a reason to get out of the house, and if I wanted to, I was allowed to walk around the mall or get something to snack on in the food court. Honestly though, I was shy and preferred to just stay cooped up in the break room, playing video games on my Nintendo 3DS. My mom's co-workers were generally very sweet to me and frequently popped in to say hello or just to check on me during downtime. If I was lucky enough to go with my mom on weekends, I could usually convince my mom to pick up my friend. We were actually dating, but since we were both girls, I didn't want that to get out, to go along with us. Going to the mall meant I was free from doing chores at home, and it was a cheap way to sneak a secret date in every now and then. My girlfriend, though, never really liked staying in the break room with me. She always wanted to walk around the mall. I should note that she really enjoyed taking walks, so it wasn't out of the ordinary to want to do so at the mall as well. I just didn't like walking as much as she did, so I tried to weasel my way out of it whenever I could. I could usually convince her to just walk over to a nearby store and look around, or to go grab something from the food court, rather than walking. But I noticed pretty quickly that she wasn't trying to actually get me to walk around. She just didn't want to be in the break room. Now my girlfriend was more perceptive to things than I was, and I assumed she just didn't like the ambience of the break room for some reason. For a little while, I let it go, but eventually, I got frustrated and asked directly, what was really bothering her about the break room? I thought she was going to tell me that it was too cramped, or the lights randomly cutting off made her uneasy, the things that bothered me about it too. But no. What she told me was that she heard things in the ceiling, like someone was walking around in there. I had learned from my mother that there was a room in the ceiling, but it wasn't for walking around. It was for maintenance. Most of the stuff in there was wiring and insulation, but technically someone could go up there. So I told my girlfriend this and said it was likely an employee up there to fix stuff. She said that was fine, but she didn't really like it and still preferred walking around or sitting in the food court. I understood her discomfort and wanted to help, so I agreed. We had a really good relationship with a sense of communication. And though I got frustrated, I wanted to make sure she felt comfortable. Later that day, I mentioned what my girlfriend had told me and asked what they were fixing in the ceiling. Though, my mom just looked distressed and said they hadn't been up there fixing anything that day, but she wanted me to see something. My mom took me into the receiving room of the department store, which was just a room off in the back filled with boxes and random junk the store was going to put out for sale. The layout of this room, though, was sort of an L shape. One part of the L was used for receiving, but the other part was the way into the ceiling. I should clarify for this next part that to get into the ceiling, the store would have to call for the mall's maintenance team. It didn't have a ladder or anything on hand to climb in there, as it would have been a safety hazard. The only thing that this particular area had was a hatch that led into the ceiling. That was it. So needless to say, I was horrified to see what appeared to be claw marks leading up the wall to the hatch. I still remember the way they looked, brown gashes that had been dug into the concrete wall of the receiving room. I asked my mom if it was a prank, but she told me that this wasn't the first time it had happened, and she had no way of knowing I would even ask about it. According to her, these weird carvings have shown up several times over the course of a few months. Each time, the store would call in the mall's security and maintenance teams, who would clean the wall up and then go into the ceiling to investigate. Nothing had ever come of their searches, though, and they eventually gave up dealing with the marks. The only explanation mall security could give was that it was likely a homeless individual who had made their way into the ceiling by sheer willpower and happened to be very good at hiding during the searches. I stopped staying at the mall with my mom after that, and any time I wanted my girlfriend to come over, we'd found somewhere else to go during the day. Sometimes she'd just come over to my house and we'd watch TV or whatever, but I didn't feel safe going back to the break room after that. I knew nothing had happened up until that point, but I just didn't want to risk it, honestly. So, to whoever or whatever was walking around in the ceiling at my mom's workplace. In 2018, I lived with my partner and my German Shepherd in the Humboldt Park neighborhood of Chicago. I was 33 years old, and our apartment was a 4th-floor walk-up unit. A very typical low-budget Chicago rental in a changing neighborhood. The layout of our building is going to matter to this story. Our building had a total of 12 units. Mine and the 3 below me had a shared front entrance, and the other 8 units were through a second entrance. All 12 apartments had connected back porches and stairs that shared a walkway to a rear gate, which lead to an alley. From the front stairwell, there are windows on each landing to the back porches, so you can see the back door of my apartment when standing at the front door through that window. We had good relations with our neighbors, especially those that lived directly below us and shared our front door. This was the thing that saved all 3 of us, my partner, my dog, and me. My partner was in a touring band at the time and would leave for weekends or weeks at a time, and it was a scary thing for me. I was sad and stalked by an ex in my teens and 20s. I'd always worried something would tip him off and had start stalking me again. A little less than a month before a 2-week tour my partner had scheduled, I received a creepy Facebook message from that stalker ex from yet another new account. About a week after that, my car was broken into. The glove box was emptied, things were thrown around. The only thing that was taken was a bag of dog treats. I had about $20 in change in the compartment between the seats, and they left the money. I was on high alert at that point, and very scared about the time I'd be alone during the tour. My partner was kind of irritated with me and the situation, and felt that it was too last minute to cancel, especially over what amounted to a bad feeling and a few isolated things that weren't direct threats. And truthfully, car break-ins are very, very common in Chicago. It's happened to me like 15 times, and police usually do the reports over the phone and don't even come to the scene. What I found really strange was that the thief didn't take the money. There was a homeless man who had started camping on the bluff nearby recently. My partner left for his tour, and I set up cameras and bought door braces for my front and back doors. I became completely nocturnal, unable to sleep at night. My poor dog developed diarrhea. Maybe because she was picking up on my stress level. It meant that I was taking her down all 4 flights of stairs for her to go blast her bowels 6 or 7 times a night. I had the distinct prickly crawling sensation of being watched when I would take her out, but I couldn't tell what was genuine and what was my own fear and paranoia. Her diarrhea lasted an unusually long time, like 3 or 4 days. I was going in and out the main door a lot, feeling very scared. I noticed that some of my neighbors wouldn't pull the door all the way closed so the lock engaged. I mentioned it to my downstairs neighbor one day, including that I was extra careful of the stalker. He was supportive, said I'd mention it to the other neighbors if he saw them. I noticed that the door was locked more frequently after that. My partner came home at about 11 a.m. on a Sunday morning. At about 8:30 a.m. that morning, my first floor neighbor's place was burglarized. He was a metalhead dude who collected instruments, sold weed and psychedelics, and lived alone. I guess he went out for breakfast, and he left his door unlocked while he was gone. Someone had come in, eaten the leftovers in his fridge, took a coat and pair of boots, and left a filthy coat and pair of boots, took his college diploma, but left $500 in the same cabinet. They left all the expensive musical instruments and mixing equipment, left the drugs, but did take a set of keys. The keys were to the first floor apartment, and a master key for front door and the back gate. My neighbors ran into each other right after the break-in, and the second floor neighbor said to go say no donut because she has a stalker. So my metalhead neighbor came up to let me know what had happened. My partner had just gotten home from his tour when he knocked at the front door. I jumped out of my skin, but looked through the peephole, recognized him, and the 3 of us stood on the stairs at my front door while he told us about the break-in. We jabber-jawed for a while, about 15 to 20 minutes. While we were talking, we heard the front door open and close below us, but thought nothing of it. Then we saw a man climbing up my back porch steps to my back door through the window. There was no other apartment he could have been going to, and he had to walk past all 11 more accessible units on his way to mine. He was not my stalker / I did not recognize him, but his image is burned in my mind. He was wearing flashy black and white high-top sneakers, not the ones stolen from downstairs. His black coat was oversized and hanging off his shoulders. We locked eyes through the window, and he froze halfway up the stairs to my back porch. He slowly took a cell phone and called someone as he slowly turned around halfway up the steps. He walked back down the stairs in artificially slow motion, like he was pretending to be nonchalant, and then bolted into a sprint as soon as he hit the porch below mine. My neighbor ran downstairs and dialed 911. My partner and I ran through the apartment to the back porch and saw a sedan and a windowless van pull out from the sketchy building 2 doors down. Both cars floored out of the alley. We didn't get the plates. But the cops said it wouldn't have mattered. There wasn't any crime committed and nothing concrete to justify stopping them. They very condescendingly explained this to me as they took my statement later. My neighbor is the one who actually made the call and has the police report. My partner and I were just considered witnesses. For a long time, the thing that scared me the most was the tool that my neighbor found when he went running downstairs. It was a 2x4 piece of wood, cut to about 2 feet, but about 6 inches of it had been made into a handle. It looked like a paddle, and for a long time, I couldn't figure out what it was, but I'm pretty sure it was a ram for the door jam/locks. When I looked at my door afterward, it looked like the frame had been repaired, like it had been broken open before. It seems like they used the one master key to place their ram, get somebody at the back door to catch me if I tried to run out that way, and somebody else was going to come back around since they only had one key, and they'd break in my front door and go forward with whatever they had planned. When we caught them before they could catch me unaware, they seemed to have aborted the plan. I suspect they'd been watching me, especially while I was taking out my dog, and figured that I was alone. It was pure coincidence that my partner had gotten home 30 minutes before all this. I feel that we all could have been horribly injured or worse had we been trapped inside and they had gotten the jump on us. Nothing else ever came of it, except that my landlord refused to change the locks, but he did agree to let us out of our lease. I moved out of Chicago and now have added a younger dog I'm training to do some bite work. My house is surrounded by cameras and floodlights and ringlet neighbors.